Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. I'm Luke Farmer, Chair of the IMechE Yorkshire Regional Committee, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this short celebration of the centenary of the Yorkshire Region Committee, which on the 14th of February 1921 became the first branch to be formed outside of the London HQ. We have several speakers today who wish to mark this centenary. Firstly, myself, the current Chair, opening and closing out the celebration, followed by Alan Brattan, our previous Chair of the Yorkshire Region Committee, who will give an overview of the Yorkshire industry over the past 100 years. Next will be Ashley Crossland, who was Chair of the Yorkshire Region Committee in 2003 to 2006. He will summarise the past and present of the Yorkshire Committee. Next will be Dinalie Karunaratne, current Chair of our Young Members panel, will describe the activities of our younger members, followed by Isabel Pollock-Hulf, who was Chair of the Yorkshire Region Committee in 1993 through to 1995, and in 2008 she became the second ever female president of the IMechE. Isabel has recently led the development of the diversity and inclusion strategy for the IMechE, and Isabel is still promoting engineering in the City of London, a campaign she started when in 2016 she was the first Lady Master of the Worshipful Company of Engineers, which is one of the modern city livery companies. Andy Pugh, who chairs the Regional Strategy Board, which oversees the activities of the 16 regional committees across the UK, has words to contribute, followed by Terry Spall, the President of the IMechE, would like to say a few words. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over now to Alan Brattan.
Hello, I'm Alan Bratton, and I would like to set the scene for today by briefly reflecting upon our region's industries over the past 100 years. Yorkshire's industries have made a huge contribution to the wealth and development of the UK. They are diverse and fascinating, many having their origins in the Industrial Revolution. They range from the deep coal mining industry in South Yorkshire, which fed Sheffield's mighty Don Valley steel industry and the huge power stations being built along the River Ouse, right over to the East Coast offshore gas production rigs and onshore reception facilities that supplies gas to the whole of the north of England. In the west, the textile industries of Bradford spawned the machine tool industry and machinery manufacturers around Halifax and Huddersfield, from which have developed high-tech precision engineering SMEs, producing springs, bearings and controls that are still sold worldwide. The need for steam power created famous boiler and valve manufacturers. The need for textile dyes started a large chemical industry in Huddersfield, and the need for industrial solvents and seed oils created large chemical and process plants at Hull. Sheffield and Hull both became centres for process plant design and fabrication. Doncaster, Leeds and York served the railway industry, and here were developed the UK's most famous steam locomotive, whereas Leeds also manufactured general machinery, including, for example, the nation's battle tanks from the First World War through to the present. Yorkshire was also involved in the beginning of the aviation industry, with airships being built at Howden and a range of military aircraft being designed and made at Brough, including the Hawk trainer as currently flown by the Red Arrows. Scott and Panther motorcycles were made in Yorkshire and sold in great numbers, along with some cars such as Jarrett's, but buses are still made in Leeds and Scarborough, and the region's significant automotive supply chain currently has over 400 companies, including 2 major turbocharger companies which supply components to OEMs worldwide. Ships were built and repaired in the Humber area, along with all the port logistics required to support a large merchant fleet and Hull's huge offshore fishing fleet. Food and drinks manufacturing big, with famous brands such as Rowntree's, Terry's and Mackintosh being founded here, and also numerous breweries, of course. The local university and technology were closely aligned with some of these industries and developed a reputation for producing excellent research and abundance of skilled engineers over the years. Nowadays, the coal mines, textile mills and fishing fleets have gone. As the old industries diminished, new high-tech engineering companies emerged or moved into the area, such as those clustered around the pioneering Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre and Park in Sheffield, which was a joint enterprise between the Sheffield City Council and the University of Sheffield, which includes names such as Rolls-Royce, Boeing, McLaren, the Welding Institute, and the UK Atomic Energy Authority. These contribute to a high-value manufacturing network catapult, and a notable addition is the Nuclear Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre. However, large amounts of high-quality steel alloys are still made and processed in Sheffield, along with high-grade metal components to supply the most demanding global industries. And there are still major heavy casting and forging facilities and high-quality fabrication companies, such that made in Sheffield is still synonymous with quality. Yorkshire's major cities are now home to numerous specialist engineering companies, ranging from medical engineering to turbine blade manufacturing, to pharmaceutical and healthcare, to engine turbochargers, to motorhome manufacturing. Some are small startup companies spun off from the local universities. However, recent large investments include a new train factory at Goole and an offshore wind turbine blade manufacturing site on the Hull docks. In terms of research into future engineering, we have some of the top university research groups in the country. For example, Huddersfield have the Turbocharger Research Group, the Institute for Railway Research and the Centre for Precision Technologies. Bradford hosts a Polymer Micro and Nanotechnology Centre, an Automotive Research Centre and a Centre for Pharmaceutical Engineering. Sheffield have the Advanced Additive Manufacturing Group, the Translational Energy Research Centre, and the Institute for Biomedical Imaging and Modelling. Sheffield Hallam's research includes the Materials and Engineering Research Institute, the National Centre for Food Engineering, and also the world's largest sports engineering research group. Hull has the Energy and Environment Institute, the Aura and Flood Innovation Centres, and their Centre for Doctoral Training in Offshore Wind Energy and the Environment. Leeds has particular expertise in research into engineering systems and design, thermofluids, surfaces and interfaces, and medical devices and regenerative medicine, whereas Leeds Beckett research includes robotics and medical engineering. Looking forward, Yorkshire is well placed to take advantage of its advanced manufacturing centres and academic research. One example is regarding climate change, with the Humber Corridor being seen as a future hydrogen hub, with sequestrated CO2 being stored and depleted in depleted offshore gas caverns. And of course, the further expansion of offshore wind power is ongoing, with future solar energy farms and bioethanol fuel production. Yorkshire is a region of superlative. The Humber Bridge was the longest single-span suspension bridge in the world for many years. Hull once had the world's largest deep-sea fishing fleet. Sheffield invented stainless steel. Bradford was the wool capital of the world. Doncaster created the fastest steam locomotive in the world. Drax was Europe's largest coal-fired power station. And we now have the largest offshore wind farm in the world off our east coast. Of course, there were many other industries and famous Yorkshire companies over the past 100 years, and I'm sorry that I do not have time to mention them. So I would now like to introduce Ashley Crossland, who was chair of our Yorkshire Committee from 2003 to 2006, and remains a committee member. And it was he who flagged up the centenary date. He will give a brief history of our 100-year-old Yorkshire Region Committee.
Thank you for that introduction. It's my job today to take us back 100 years and set the scene for the institution creating its first regional branches in 1921. Initially, they were called branches, but now they're called regions. 100 years ago, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers held the majority of its meetings at its London headquarters. I don't doubt that London was the logical place for the headquarters, given its rail links. The IMechE had started in Birmingham in 1847 and moved to London 30 years later. But this London location favoured people living in the home counties and put members in the industrial north and further afield at a great disadvantage. Some other institutions did have regional branches from as early as 1908, so the IMechE came late to this way of thinking. First, the IMechE Council had to be convinced that local branches would be a benefit, and then the rules regulating branches had to be devised. None of this might have come to fruition had it not been for the persistence of 3 consecutive presidents, each with strong links to Manchester: Michael Longridge, Dr. Edward Hopkinson, and Captain H. Ryle Sankey. With these presidents all campaigning with Manchester in mind, it took 3 years for the institution to agree to having branches. Of course, everybody expected Manchester to become the first branch, but in fact, it was to be the petition to form the Leeds local branch that was granted first. So Yorkshire became the very first branch of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. The inaugural meeting of the branch was held in Leeds on the 14th of February, 1921, meaning that it celebrates its centenary this weekend. The original branch committee adopted the name of the Leeds local branch, but the name was soon changed to the Yorkshire branch. Now we are the Yorkshire Region. Now, although the catchment area was defined as the county of Yorkshire, a small anomaly was caused by the fact that one committee member, Fred Clements, worked at the Parkgate Iron and Steel Company in Rotherham, which of course is in Yorkshire, but he lived in Chesterfield in Derbyshire. The Yorkshire branch was keen to lay claim to Chesterfield because the first president of the institution, George Stevenson, lived in Chesterfield and is buried there at Holy Trinity Church. Fred Clements went on to be elected as the branch chairman in 1923. However, I must not skip past the first chairman of the Yorkshire branch, who was Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Kitson Clark, who played a leading role in establishing the Yorkshire branch and turning it into the success that has served as an example for other branches to follow. Kitson Clark worked at the Airedale foundry of the family firm of Kitson and Company, and at the time he had another job as president of the Institution of Locomotive Engineers. Thus, he was able to bring a great deal of experience to the role, and he subsequently went on to become president of the IMechE in 1931. 2 things I want to mention quickly. First, the Leeds local branch only qualified as the first branch of the institution by just 1 day before the Northwestern branch was formed, which was then followed 2 days later by the Midlands branch. The South Wales branch was created 9 months later, then the Scottish branch in 1923, and others followed. The second point to make here is the measure of success of the Yorkshire branch in those early years. The attendances at Yorkshire branch events was fantastic, with a routine lecture attracting, say, 90 members out of a branch membership of 600. Often a lecture was presented in Sheffield, and again the night after in Leeds, equally drawing a large audience and thus having reached 30% of the branch membership. Nowadays, we get attendances averaging about 30 from our local area memberships, but over many more events. So the formation of branches was proved to have been completely justified. Eminent engineers were easily recruited to the branch committee. For instance, Fred Clements in 1923 led a committee of 1 with a knighthood, 3 with other national honours, that's MBEs, etc., 2 professors, an institution vice president, a past vice president, a member of council, a doctor, etc. So both at headquarters and across the country, the IMechE branches were held in high esteem and commanded a lot of influence and respect. The branches had no trouble in getting high-profile speakers to deliver lectures. Some particularly noteworthy speakers should appear on screen now. The archives show a fascinating range of technical lectures and visits over the years, and many with local themes which reflected technical progress in industry. Surprisingly, the lectures continued during World War II, but were only held on Saturdays. Some examples being marking methods and war production, the reconditioning of Blitz machine tools, and research and development applied to bomb disposal. Now, to move forward a few years. In 1968, the Yorkshire region was split into 3 geographic areas, which later became 4 areas, and local committees were created for each area with responsibility for organising their lectures and visits at locations closer to their local members. Our committee members have become very proactive in this task with the help of our Yorkshire Region Administrator. The events are published on our YRU website and in a small printed booklet. In addition to these 4 area committees, the region also has an automobile division, a process industries division, a senior members panel and a young members panel, all who contribute in arranging lectures and visits. The region is very grateful for all the lectures and visits freely provided over the years, and a few notable events from recent years are mentioned in this slide. The other main activity for the 4 area committees is in supporting various local STEM or careers events in schools and colleges throughout the year across Yorkshire. This usually involves members organising an IMechE stand with hands-on activities and or careers information. Some of our members also go into schools and run bespoke STEM classroom activities. However, it will be appreciated that things are a bit different in these COVID times. These STEM events reach out to thousands of school and college students. Highlights of these STEM events in recent years are shown on the slide on screen now. Each area committee has also established links with their local university engineering departments, Sheffield, Sheffield Hallam, Leeds, Hull, Bradford and Huddersfield, and have promoted IMechE sponsored university competitions such as Speak Out for Engineering, the undergraduate design competition, and Formula Student. Our members' companies have helped sponsor some of their Formula Student cars, as well as offering potential employment opportunities and careers advice to students. Each year, the region hosts a visit by the president of the IMechE, and this is delegated to each of the 4 areas on a rotational basis. Usually, the president visits 1 or more local factories and meets students at a local university. An evening buffet is usually arranged with the area committee members and local members, and the day proves to be an intense but enjoyable occasion for us. And finally, another key annual event in the region's calendar is the annual dinner, which is held at the magnificent Cutler's Hall in Sheffield and attracts local members, Yorkshire companies, local dignitaries, several past presidents, and the standing president who gives a keynote speech. We get about 190 people attending. We celebrate any newly elected members and fellows who are present, along with the winners of the local Speak Out for Engineering heats. So you can see that the Yorkshire Committee has a busy calendar. In the pre-COVID year, the Yorkshire Committee members, all of whom are volunteers, arranged over 50 events, lectures, visits, or CPD activities, and supported about 10 major STEM career events, plus various classroom activities. In all, we try hard to look after the interests of our members, of all the members in the Yorkshire region, by putting on a wide selection of events in which we trust that everyone has found something to interest them. This is a recent photo of some of the 2020 committee. And now I would like to hand over to Dinalie, who will talk about the activities of our young members.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dinalie Karunaratne, Chair of the North Yorkshire Young Members. Now, many people hear young members and think graduates, apprentices, students, usually affiliate and associate members. But we actually also include any member that has achieved professional registration in the last 10 years. That means we have a large pool of young members across the Yorkshire region that our panel seeks to engage with. Now, despite that, over the last few years, the committees have struggled to engage with many of these members, and naturally, COVID hasn't helped either. So let me paint a picture of what the young members represent, what they have achieved, and what they're still capable of, and maybe we can attract a few more members to our cause. Across the Yorkshire region, we have committees for the North, South, East, and West of Yorkshire, each run by a group of young professionals and recently registered members on a volunteer basis to create events and networking opportunities to support and represent apprentices, students, graduates, researchers, and really any engineer in the early stages of their relationship with the institution. Another responsibility of the young member committees is the connection to our local communities, particularly getting school-aged children excited about STEM. We hope to inspire future generations of engineers who will take on the mantle after us to keep pushing for progress and innovation in both the industry and the institution. We run many local STEM events ourselves and support the regional committee where we can with theirs. We utilize our professional network to access universities and companies that can provide us with the cool tech that we can then take out to local communities and use to engage with children of all ages. One such example is the annual Otley Science Fair that the North Yorkshire Young Members support every year. With an average footfall of 700 people, this event has helped us year on year to showcase to hundreds of children what it means to be an engineer, whether that's designing a robot, the next aircraft, or instruments for laparoscopic surgery. And when we're not inspiring younger generations, we look to provide our young members with some inspiration of their own. The South and East Yorkshire Young Members Committees, for example, run successful workshops on public speaking. They also run some excellent networking activities that combine the science of distilleries with the enjoyment of their products. The North Yorkshire Young Members, for example, had their own take on the successful Pint of Science programme and created Pint of Engineering, an evening where local engineering entrepreneurs shared their take on the future of engineering. And each year, all our Yorkshire Young Member Committees come together to host the Yorkshire Heats for the Speak Out for Engineering competition that tests participants on their communication skills and then sends winners on to the Yorkshire final. Some of our young members also participate in the various IMechE University Challenges, including the Undergraduate Design Challenge and the Formula Student Challenge, the latter being particularly popular as 6 Yorkshire universities build cars to compete in an international event. And annually, these Yorkshire teams get together to showcase their cars and compare notes. We also play a part in the direction of the wider institution. Our engagement with young members sets an example of what the IMechE can offer, which is why we take great pride in being approachable and transparent, for example, through the way we use social media. We recognize our members need our support, not just with their development, but also with any issue they might face while navigating their way to professional chartership and beyond. It is for this reason that the young members have recently taken a more visible role in advising the institution on issues of diversity and inclusion. As it becomes less and less acceptable for engineering companies to treat D&I as a nice to have or an extracurricular activity, being a professional institution of engineering, we have an obligation to lead the way and not fall behind, to examine previous narratives and strive to future-proof this institution that so many engineers across the world take their lead from. So, since 2019, the North Yorkshire Young Members have been working with HQ and the D&I group to launch a series of webinars discussing various aspects of D&I that currently affect the industry and the institution. The aim of this series is to share knowledge with and gain insights from our members on what and how the institution and the wider industry can do better. Each webinar invites subject matter experts as well as engineers at various stages in their career and from various avenues of engineering to come together to discuss common D&I challenges and what we can do about them. And at this point, I have to shout out to Joanna Horton, Isabel Pollock-Hulf, and Christina Virkulich at HQ, who have been instrumental in making sure the learnings and findings from these webinars inform the IMechE's direction on D&I. So you see there's a lot of passion and drive amongst our young members to keep pushing for progress and engagement. And there are numerous other activities that I haven't even touched on that all these Yorkshire Young Member Committees organise each year, all with the hope of supporting the young members in the region, connecting with our local communities, and advising the institution on the needs of our members. So if you'd like to know more, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You know my name now. But with that, I will hand over to Isabel Parkhoff, who is the past Yorkshire president of the IMechE. Isabel was one of only 3 female presidents over the institution's 175-year history. And seeing the work she does now in leading the D&I strategy for the institution, I have full faith that her efforts will not only enable more female presidents to leave their mark, but allow engineers of any background to truly feel at home with the institution.
Thank you, Dinalie. I first arrived in Yorkshire in 1976 to work for ICI in Huddersfield after graduating from Imperial College. That's nearly 45 years ago, and what a remarkable career I have had since then, becoming the IMechE's 127th president and the second lady president in 2012, the same year as London hosted the Olympic Games. It was a memorable year in many ways, visiting the regions and branches, meeting members, through to presenting the institution's most recent report on global food waste to the UN in New York. That's quite a journey from starting here in Yorkshire as a young engineer, attending the lecture evenings at IMechE at the University of Leeds, and recognising it's always worthwhile attending events while you have the chance. Do I remember the details? Probably not. Did I take copious notes? Certainly not. But the experience of meeting fellow engineers and learning a little about both the breadth and the depth of their experience and wisdom was a priceless opportunity. For 100 years, the Yorkshire region has led the way in excellence. I have followed in the footsteps of many great Yorkshire-based people. They have been colleagues, members, committee members, mentors, and more importantly, friends. People you can turn to when you need them. And I thank them all for their support, not just to me, but to all members of IMechE at all stages of their careers. I am one of only many presidents with a Yorkshire heritage, and Ashley's book gives many more details. It is particularly special when we all come together at Cutler's Hall in Sheffield for the Yorkshire Region annual dinner, reinvigorated by Professor Rod Smith in the presence of Pam Liversidge, the First Lady President. This event gives us the chance to recognise prize winners across the region and present new fellow and member certificates. Today, our towns and cities no longer thunder day and night to the sounds of heavy industry in mills and factories. The Engineering Heritage Award Scheme recognises sites of significant engineering heritage. 12 of the first 100 awards are scattered across the Yorkshire region, mainly in and around Sheffield. Today's Northern powerhouse is precision engineering, advanced manufacturing and high technology, complementing the area's traditional strength in manufacturing. Indeed, although Yorkshire's textile industry has changed, the label Made in Huddersfield is still internationally recognised as the best in the world. Yorkshire is unique in producing talent and doing great research. One example is at the University of Leeds. It has the world's largest academic facility for testing materials used for human joint replacements, all with the aim that we will have 50 active years after 50. And we all need that. I'm still a very active past president, and I'm currently chairing several committees for the IMechE, the Staff Pension Fund, the New Nominations Committee, and the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which just this week has launched our new D&I Strategy Action Plan to make the Institution of Mechanical Engineers visibly more inclusive. This new strategy maps out very clearly the steps we all need to take to make a real difference. We need to be exemplars of a diverse and inclusive professional organisation. We hope that it will inspire everyone to cast a D&I lens over everything that they do and make some changes as appropriate. Where there are barriers to inclusion, they need to be tackled if we are truly to become inclusive and diverse in our engineering community. We all have to overcome our natural and our unconscious biases. Personally, I have been doing this with my Formula student team at the University of Leeds and as the chair of the New Nominations Committee when we're looking and selecting new talented, diverse members to lead into our committees. This is our chance to encourage the right culture and behaviours to enable the benefits of diversity and inclusion to flourish. It's been a privilege to speak on behalf of all past, present and future members of IMechE with Yorkshire Connections, and thank Alan and Ashley, Dinalie, Luke and all the Yorkshire team for telling the story of the first 100 years. In concluding, I wish Yorkshire well in celebrating its first centenary. May there be many, many more. And I will now hand over to Andy Pugh, who chairs the Regional Strategy Board, which oversees the activities of the 16 regional committees across the UK.
Good afternoon, my name is Andy Pugh and I'm chair of the IMechE's Regional Strategy Board, the RSB. I was elected to that role in November 2020. And thank you for inviting me to come along and speak to you in my capacity as chair of the RSB and join you in celebrating the Yorkshire Region's centenary. What a wonderful occasion. Although a Welshman, admittedly a Welshman with not the strongest of Welsh accents, Yorkshire holds a very special place in my heart because my grandfather was a Yorkshireman. He wasn't just any old Yorkshireman though, he was a special type of Yorkshireman. He was a Yorkshireman who was also an engineer. And I remember going around his house when I was a young boy and he would be building things, and in a spare room he built a model railway and it was all wonderful to see. And I'm sure it helped inspire me to go into engineering. For those who are not aware of the RSB, let me tell you a little bit about what it is. It is where the chairs of the various regions are brought together. And I think the regions are massively important because it is there that we can best engage our existing members and also help develop the next generation of engineers. And in my time as chair of the RSB, it's been wonderful to hear some of the things that have already been taking place in the Yorkshire region and how you are working so hard to bring value to our members in the Yorkshire region and also, like I said, develop that so important next generation of engineers. I tend to summarise the RSB as having three functions though, which is the top-down function in which it brings to the regions, it enables the regions to implement decisions made at a high level within the IMechE at trustee board level. So that might be the business plan, for example. then you've got that second one, which is the bottom-up function, which is where regions can seek support from the IMechE. It's a good channel for that support to be requested. And then you've got that third function, which is the side-to-side. That's what I really enjoy, that side-to-side function. For those of you who are in the workplace, if you've left the workplace, looking back, and maybe you're a student, you will all know just the value that can be gained from working with others. And that's what the RSB really enables, is chairs to come together and what I sometimes call cross-pollination, in which we discuss ideas. Ideas are shaped and ideas are built on and improved. And that's something that we really focus on here in the RSB. And it's a critical time for that, because at this sad time, at this strange time because of the pandemic, it's also a time for changing behaviours, getting used to new ways of working, perhaps for the good. And so a lot of us are having to get used to this virtual or online way of working. And Yorkshire, you've really grasped that, and not least through this online Centenary event. I'm sure if there was one event in the year that you would have loved to have come together to celebrate in person, it would have been this. And I really do hope that you're still able to do that at some point. But well done for coming up with such a good example of how to celebrate an occasion through an online event. There's been obviously a lot of hard work put into this. And talking about cross-pollination, you've really set a benchmark to the other regions. You were the first region of many to be celebrating their centenary. And so it's an opportunity for others to see what you have done and think of doing similarly. Before I leave, I'm just going to introduce our president, who's going to speak to you also now, Terry Spall. It's my privilege to introduce Terry. Terry was elected to the role of president of the IMechE in May 2020, and he's been working in that role full-time since then, at what is still a pivotal time in the life of the IMechE. And Terry's just going to speak a little bit about what the region means to the institution, the importance the Yorkshire region has in the workings of the institution. Over to Terry.
Well, thank you, Andy, for your very kind introduction. It is a great honour as president to be invited along to help you celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Yorkshire region. As you've heard, Yorkshire was our first and is therefore our oldest region. So very right and proper that we should formally recognise this occasion. I mean, to put it into context, Yorkshire Region, or Leeds Local Branch, as it was originally known, was created even before the institution was granted its royal charter by King George V back in 1930. Now, the actual birthday of the region is on Sunday, the 14th of February, which of course is Valentine's Day. And I should probably add that I'm also somebody originating from the other side of the Pennines in Lancashire. So I did think perhaps it would have been nice to send a bunch of red roses, but I was fearful that might have been seen as a hostile act. So I thought I'd better not do that. But joking aside, what an amazing achievement to see the Yorkshire region so buoyant and still delivering so competently in every respect for the institution after 100 years. You know, that is such a fine and fitting testament to the members who, over the last century, have so selflessly and with such enthusiasm given the time and their commitment to promote mechanical engineering through the Yorkshire region. Well, with over 5,700 members, Yorkshire is one of our largest regions, and it's made a huge contribution over the years to the growth and development of the institution. It's produced 13 presidents, including 2 lady presidents who've already been mentioned today, but Pam Liversidge, who was our first lady president, and of course Isabel Pollock-Hulf, who we've just heard from, was the second. Now, I was hoping to visit Yorkshire in person to join the celebration. It would have been great, but the pandemic has really conspired against us all in so many ways. You know, but it's a wonderful credit to the organising team to see that you've put this together. It's a brilliant webinar, you know, so we've been able to celebrate this together, even if it's virtually. You know, a lot of hard work goes into making these things happen, So my sincere thanks to everybody who's been involved in making it happen. Now, the past 100 years have seen many changes in the world of engineering. As you've heard, Yorkshire has been at the forefront of innovation and technology. You know, the region is home to many leading engineering companies and is also at the cutting edge of research, which is reflected in the breadth and expertise of our membership here in Yorkshire. Looking through the history of the region, and Ashley articulated that really well, you know, there have been many proud moments. One that stood out for me is that this month, actually, February, is the 65th anniversary of Yorkshire hosting the very first James Clayton Lecture. Now, the James Clayton Lecture is one of our prestige lecture series that we run in the institution. And the title of that lecture was The Early History of the Whittle Jet Propulsion Gas Turbine. And would you believe it was given by none other than Commodore Sir Frank Whittle himself. So that says a lot about the region, that you managed to get Frank Whittle to come and make a pitch here. So Sir Frank Whittle is also an honorary fellow of the institution, and this honorary fellowship is the highest honour the institution can bestow on anybody, and he received that accolade in 1944. Well, last year I had the great honour of awarding an honorary fellowship to Chris Rea, CBE, who some of you will know actually. He's the chair of AES Engineering Limited. And I know you're not going to tell me that Chris's company is what? Guess what? It's based in the Yorkshire region. As an institution, you know, our mission is to raise the profile of mechanical engineering and to support the young engineers of the future. And it's really great to see so many members of the region, you know, both active and retired, giving something back and volunteering as STEM ambassadors, you know, going into schools, you know, to inspire young people and helping them to understand more about science, about technology, about engineering, you know, and encouraging them to really, you know, consider an engineering career for their futures. You know, as you heard, the Yorkshire Region's Young Member Group is very active. We've heard from Dinalie, and she's recently led the way on diversity and inclusion, organising a webinar on supporting female engineers in the workforce. All great stuff, and it says such a lot about the region. Well, the first century is just a start, and I'm confident the Yorkshire region will be contributing to UK and global engineering excellence for many years to come. You know, and will continue to help the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, our institution, to improve the world through engineering. So as your president, you know, I'd like to formally commend the Yorkshire region for the huge contribution it's made to the institution over the years. You know, please do continue to push forward, you know, and I do wish you continuing success. You know, I'd like to just thank a couple of people. So Emma and Catherine, who have been looming behind the scenes today, but they've put a huge amount of work. They're actually staff employees of the institution, but they've done a huge amount of work behind the scenes to help us to make this happen today. And I'd also like to thank our panelists, which is Luke, Alan, Ashley, Dinalie, Isabel, and Andy, for all your efforts preparing for this to get ready and to make this celebration such a success. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all of our active volunteers in the Yorkshire region, because quite simply, you know, it wouldn't happen without you. And finally, I'd like to thank all of those who joined us in the audience today, you know, to help us to mark this momentous occasion. I hope you've enjoyed it so far as much as I have. So very sincerely, thank you, Yorkshire Region.
I'd like to thank Alan, Ashley, Dinalie, Isabel, Andy and Terry for all the work that they have put into producing this special centenary celebration, and also the staff at HQ, Catherine Haynes, Angel Blagborough, Emma Patterson, who have helped us throughout all of this. Our thanks to all the members and guests who have taken time out to attend this event as well. What I'd like to do is take the opportunity to say a big thank you to all the great work that our volunteers do every year in their committee roles, as highlighted by today's presentations. Our committees are always looking for new members, and if anyone is interested in getting involved in the work of the committee, or just wants to offer a lecture or event, or wants to get involved in our STEM activities, then please contact our regional administrator as detailed on the webinar notes. Meanwhile, please keep attending our events, which we try to select to be of interest to a broad range of our members. There remains one last task for me to do, and that is to present our president with a copy of the Centenary book that Ashley Crossland has written and has been printed by the IMechE, and a copy will be made available to all members online. Terry, please accept this book as a token of our appreciation. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Luke. That's fantastic. And I'm sure I will take great delight in reading that. Thank you.
Thank you again for your time and everyone that has attended, and here's to the next 100 years of the Yorkshire Committee. Now, Andy Pugh will flag up any questions that have been raised during the presentations. Thank you. Take care.
Andy, Terry here. You're muted, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Terry. What an occasion to be muted. It's the words of 2020, isn't it? So thanks very much for that. So if this is the time, this is the Q&A time where we've heard our various speakers, and if you've got any questions that you would like to put to our panel, on that panel we have Terry himself, our president. We've got Isabel, Ashley, Alan, Dinalie, Luke and myself. So if you've got any questions at all that you would like to raise from anything you've heard in the various talks, then please do put a question in the chat function and I will raise it to the relevant speaker. Thank you. It might take a few seconds for questions to start coming through after this. Okay, we've got one question, a question for the president coming through first from Steve Wainwright. So a question for the president. Can I put you on the spot and ask you to promise to visit us as past president when life does return to normal, perhaps when we are able to reinstate our dinner? Well, I'm not sure if we can make promises, but I did hear something from the president that he would use, is it best endeavors? Is that the right way of saying it? But over to Terry. I think you'll try your very hardest. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I'll go probably better than best endeavours on that one. I will definitely come if the invitation's there. It's been an unusual year to be president, actually, as you might imagine. I'm probably going to go down on record as the cheapest ever president. Somebody warned me before I became president and said, make sure you jump on the scales before you become president, and then make sure that you've got the same reading when you jump off. Well, that has not been a problem for me this year. But yes, Excellent. Thank you for the invitation, and I would be delighted to come if I have the opportunity to do so. Yeah, thank you.
I'll keep looking here. So yes, so there we go. We've got another question actually. So it's for the president again. So here we go. It's great that you are making the most of this opportunity to engage the president on these various issues. So question for you again, please, Terry. So how is the IMechE engaging with government to accelerate the gap in apprenticeships across engineering fields? So the comment here is that NVQ students appear to be being treated as second-class students when they should be at the forefront. So what are we doing to accelerate the gap in apprenticeships across all engineering fields, please, Terry?
Okay, well, that's a really good question, actually, and we are doing as much as we can. So just before Christmas, I met with Stephen Metcalf. Some of you may know Stephen. He was the government's engineering envoy during the Year of Engineering. I met him in our building in Birdcage Walk, and it was actually one of the questions that I put to him. So, you know, the government is very focused on making sure that we have really good, attractive apprenticeship schemes to get young people into not just engineering, but in all professions. One thing he spoke to me about really was the fact that, you know, there are many PEIs around. We are one, well, second largest with 115,000 members. But he did encourage us to really, to try when we talk to government, try and come together and make it one voice. Now, since then, I've been talking to the civil engineers and I've been talking to the IET at president level, and they are really willing to collaborate on this basis with us. So if you put all three together, we've got a voice then of 350,000 engineers behind us. So, you know, we are going to get into government and get that message across. It's been a difficult time because of the pandemic, because the things that we would have done and had face-to-face meetings, we've not been able to do. But they've certainly had it from me. There's more to come yet to make sure that they do hear our voice and we do get their support to respond to questions like Phil has asked there.
Thank you very much. There's another question, actually. There's, again, making the most of you being here. And it's so we, as I think we're all familiar with, in this particular time, we haven't just had to get used to Zoom and all these various ways of engaging people via video, but it's always been of interest. What do the people have behind themselves? So we're always, that's unfortunately why I've blurred my background. But this is a question for you, Mr. President. So somebody has looked slightly behind your right shoulder and has seen a certain picture on a wall. And the question is, how do you think that Sir Frank Whittle would view a turbine being used to power a land vehicle? How do you think Sir Frank Whittle would view a turbine being used to power a land vehicle? Well,
do you know what? I think it's a really interesting question. That there's a very good technical answer. I think that the easy answer is he would have loved it. But gas turbines, his role for a gas turbine was obviously had different applications and not necessarily an automobile. But they have been used in automobiles for many years. I used to work for a company called Leyland over in Lancashire, and they put one in a truck. And it was the most unwieldy vehicle you could ever come across. I mean, it just wasn't designed for a gas turbine. I spoke to people who drove it, and they said they had to look on the horizon for objects to avoid when they hit the gas pedal, but it just didn't operate at its maximum efficiency. So it produced huge amounts of smoke, and the fuel consumption was horrendous. The one behind me here is a little bit different, as you well know, and I think it's a very, very exciting application of a gas turbine. And although the project is kind of stalled at the moment, I really do hope it gets going again because it's inspired so many people. And I think if Frank Whittle was here, he'd be there watching it real time, I'm sure of that.
Really form the basis. Absolutely. Thank you. We've now got a question for Ashley. So Ashley Crossland. So there was and this is perhaps a question that I might be able to answer myself because of being a former regional chair. But it is actually over to you, Ashley. So what was there was a particular medal apparently that you were wearing on the photo in the event booking email. So there were photos of the various speakers in the event booking website, and you were wearing a medallion. Please, can you just inform the gentleman of what that was? Thank you, Ashley.
Right. Well, that was the chairman's badge of office. That was. You see the president wearing his badge of office. We in Yorkshire also had a badge of office, and that was specially made not so very long ago. We had a devil of a job trying to get the badge made because IMechE funds wouldn't allow it, and we couldn't use our grant to purchase it. And the story, I suppose, is in danger of getting lost in the midst of time. But it was thanks to, I believe, one past regional chairman who dipped into his own pocket and made it happen. The design was produced by a chap who was at Hallam University, Sheffield Hallam University. He was a keen silversmith in his own right, and the badge itself is is solid silver. It's hallmarked silver, but heavily gold plated. The badge of office carries the head of Dobbin. The Hawthorne World, the squared up version, as he was then, he's sort of got disappeared. He's disappeared from the red flag that we have now. But at the time, he was current. He was a current thing. And also on the badge of office that you see me wearing there is a gear wheel, which I suppose signifies engineering, and is typical of engineering throughout Yorkshire. So that's that badge of office that I'm wearing is the chairman's badge of office, made for the chairman of the Yorkshire region.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, it's always great when we can come up with these things through internally within the region. And it seems like you had quite a lot of input from the region into that particular badge. Does anybody have any questions relating specifically to the industry in Yorkshire, let's say, so based upon Alan's speech? No? Okay. Okay, we've got another question coming in here. So it is a question for, this is for Isabel. Let's put it to Isabel first, please, and then we'll put it to Dinalie afterwards. So Isabel, please. We don't seem to be making any major inroads into our endeavours to attract more young women into engineering, especially mechanical engineering. What is going wrong? Asks this person. Or what are we actually? Or where? You know, let's look at the negative. What's going wrong? But actually, let's look at the positive too. Or are we actually making progress? So over to you, Isabel, first, please.
Thank you for that question. Obviously, I should have perhaps had more facts and figures beside me, but I believe the trend is going up and we are making progress. There's been a lot of new initiatives over the last few years, trying to ensure that we understand the mind of the younger person as well. So it's been campaigns on social media. There have been some brilliant videos produced by the Royal Academy. WISE has been tremendous in its support, and I believe one of their current campaigns is to get the faces of 1 million women who are involved in engineering into one huge poster. So there's a lot of progress being made, but as usual, we can always do more.
Thank you, Isabel. Over to you, Dinalie.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, so I would say there's also a societal component to that. We need to remember that culturally, we still have a long way to go before we see the same sort of levels of encouragement for women to sort of pursue any career that they would like. So there's a societal aspect that we need to remember, that the IMechE can impact very much professionally, but then when we think about societally, that's on each one of us to sort of move that needle a bit further with every generation. I think I would echo Isabel's thoughts. Personally, in my professional network, I'm seeing a lot more female engineers come through in the younger generations. Something that I think we also need to remember is, while we're looking after our younger generations of female engineers, we need to take care of the ones already in profession, the ones in careers. We need to make sure they have the support that is required. We need to make sure we focus on their retention, their development, and then make sure that as we progress through the years, we bring these female engineers into decision-making positions, leadership positions, so they can, like Isabel has had in her time, so they can have an active influence on, you know, bringing up the new generations and making sure that we reach equal numbers across the board.
Thank you, Dinalie. Yeah, important question there. Important we get that right. So we've got perhaps time for one more question, if there's anybody else that would like to put a question to the panel. So actually, we've got a comment coming in, which is, yeah, somebody said to you, Dinalie, that they agree wholeheartedly that the societal aspects are really important for encouraging the next generation. There's that society. It's wider. It's about how society can help here. Good. Well, if there's there's one more question. This is going to be the last question now. So this is perhaps appropriately back to the president again. So it's a question that so about this current moment in time amongst COVID-19 and the imminent need for digitalization. Do you feel the IMechE can influence engineering organisations to favour a stronger work balance moving forward, and also encourage members to engage with their local engineering communities more? So, can we influence change digitally? Do you feel the IMechE can influence engineering organisations to favour a stronger work balance? Has that perhaps not been achieved previously? And through what we've gone through over this last year, can we make changes to ensure a better work balance going forward? Over to you, Terry. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Andy. I mean, well, certainly we can by example. I feel fairly confident in saying that I don't think any organisation is going to go back to exactly as it was before the pandemic. We've learned a lot. We've learned how to adapt to virtual platforms. We are at a situation with our HQ building that we're going to have to go through some refurbishment, and we will try and refurbish it to be friendly for virtual platforms, so you can join a meeting and participate virtually or physically on equal terms. So lots of things are going to change, and it just isn't. I just can't see how we're going to go back to how it was before. And the IMechE staff are all pretty much working from home and very efficiently, and I'm sure that's the case in most organisations, that people have learned to cope with this. And the work-life balance situation, I think, is much better. So I really do hope that at least some of that will stay with us in the future. Whether we can influence it or not as the IMechE, I'm not quite sure, if I'm honest, if we can do that. But certainly within the IMechE, in redesigning our building for the future, we'll have more staff members than we will desks. And that's not because we're going to get rid of any staff. It's just because we're going to adopt different flexible working practices. And I think we'll not be alone in doing that. I think we'll see many organisations doing exactly the same. So it's a really good question to ask, and I think if anything positive has come out of COVID, it's that. It's the fact that we are going to change in that way.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I do hope that we do learn some appropriate lessons in the process. Thank you. Well, thank you all so much for joining. It's been great to have you celebrate with us on this very special occasion, to join us in celebrating Yorkshire's centenary. And thank you to our speakers too. Thank you to Isabel. Thank you to Alan. Thank you to Ashley. Thank you to Dinalie. And thank you to Luke. And not least, thank you to our president, Terry Spall, as well. So wish you all well and stay safe. And we look forward to working further again with Yorkshire Region in the future. Thanks very much. Good to be with you.